Today what I'm going to do is show the process of actually putting in the new batteries, the new cylindrical batteries from newpriusbatteries.com. So this isn't going to be like a very detailed, this is how you do it, because really that's what the instruction manual's for. But I'll go ahead and record this video so you can see what I did, and maybe seeing it visually on a video in addition to the PDF or paper documentation can be of help to you. Could also give you an indication of what it's going to look like when it's done. So let's go ahead and get started. First step here is going to be pulling all of these off. One thing to note, these black plastic covers. One thing to note is that my my disconnect is out. I'm gonna wear. Y'all don't do like I do. Actually, go get some real gloves that are rubber isolation gloves. I'm going to be careful as I go. I have disconnected the safety switch here, so I have reduced voltage in here, but there is still high voltage, high current stuff going on here, so I'm going to be very careful. So we're looking for which one's positive. Alright, so on this opposite side here, I believe is what we're talking about. So this is where the disconnect goes, but over on this other side is where I have my positive and my negative. So this is my negative wire going to the ECU or contact and whatnot back in here, right? And then this would be my positive wire. And I know that because you can look at the pack itself and see that's a negative going to there. So that's gonna be a negative. And vice versa, this one's a positive going to here. So according to the instruction manual, that's normal. Apparently, if the pack is rebuilt, it's possible that they did it opposite. Okay, so we have observed that positive is down here. That's good. I wonder if the wires are also color coded. So it's an orange wire, and it's got black on the sheathing, so not necessarily obvious. All right, so now we're gonna pull all of the buses off. So that's all these individual nuts. So I'm gonna go grab my tools so I can start pulling those off. All right, so here we go. I've got my 5/16 bit on here. We're gonna go to town. I just grabbed myself a random box to put all my nuts in. But we actually won't be reusing these, so they're just nice little copper nuts. I think they're copper. Maybe they're like a brass. Alright, got all the ones off of that side, so let me turn this battery pack around so we can get the other side. Alright, so that all worked well except for this one that apparently I've managed to strip. Oh look, I missed one. So I'm gonna go grab some pliers and get that guy off. Ooh, it's on there tight. I need some walking pliers. Alright, new tool. Let's try something a little bigger. Yeah, I really goofed with this. So this is my fault because I was putting these back on and using the impact wrench instead of using a torque wrench. So there we go. All right. It's all. My battery terminal nuts are now off. So let's see what's next. All right, so the next step is going to be pulling all of these off. And this will effectively get rid of the high voltage DC because it will no longer be in series. So this makes things much safer to work on. And we shouldn't need these bus bars anymore. thankfully, because mine are not in that great of shape. We need to undo the screws on the bottom. And the instructions say to slide the whole battery pack to the edge and do it from the underside. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and try flipping the battery over so you guys can see what I'm doing. But yeah, it's probably be safer, especially on a table like this where I've got access to just do it from the underside. So here we've got all these here, right? So these are holding on to every other cell from this side, for every other individual battery. So the batteries are no longer bolted in from the underside. So you can see how much looser this is. I just need to very carefully flip it back over again. You can see where it'd be desirable not to have to do that. All right, so the next piece is going to be getting off this end cap. You'll notice that there's a screw missing right here, or a bolt missing right here. So I must have taken that off previously and not put it back on. It would be just like this one. So let's get that off. I'm gonna go get, these are probably 14s. And that's probably a 10. So I'm gonna go get a couple tools. All right, so this guy's a 10. I'm gonna need that one. And then I was wrong, these guys are not 14s, they are 12s. And they're tight. So you'll see in the instruction manual, there's actually a use for these torsion bars. It's not just to hold the battery pack together, it's to hold them compressed together, because these are prismatic cells that are, you know, rectangular, as opposed to cylindricals, which is what you normally see with batteries, right? So if you tried to charge or discharge these without the pressure on them, they will actually expand. And actually, if you were charging an individual one in here and you paid attention, you would actually see it start gapping on either side of the cell next to it, which is fun to see. A little disconcerting. So this is going to pull straight up. So the instruction manual says to be careful not to pry it out, right? That can damage things. Pull straight up, it'll come out. So now I can access the battery. So number one, very carefully pull it out and grab this temperature sensor off the bottom so I can show you guys how this is attached. So we got a temperature sensor right here, and there's going to be 3 of these, and apparently they are a little finicky. They're inexpensive sensors, but I guess they're hard to get a hold of. I don't know, I've never tried, but just be gentle with those. You don't want to be ripping them out. All right, so you can start pulling cells out. Start stacking these over here. So in the instruction manual, they say that you can put these sensors on the bottom, like they are now, on the new, when you rebuild the pack, or for whatever reason, they prefer putting them on the top. I guess the Generation 3 packs, all the temperature sensors are up top, for whatever reason. So when they rebuild packs, they go ahead and put everything up top instead of having them on the bottom. So if there's enough length on the temperature sensor wires, you could reroute them up top. So the next step here, after getting all the batteries out, is that as an optional step, you can insulate these torsion bars. And I guess that's just so that worst case scenario, if something tried to come in contact with them, like if you were in an accident, that there'd be less chance of shorting out between things. So they included the electrical tape. I figure why not? Let's insulate some torsion bars. I don't know what's worse, insulating a torsion bar or covering up a warning label about high voltage electricity. This is taking longer than I thought it would. There we have it. Everything wrapped. Alright, so the other question is going to be next, would this guy reach on top? I'm guessing I'd be able to wrap it straight up since these are cylindrical cells as opposed to prismatics, but this sensor wire is not going to reach very far. I think I'll just attach these on the bottom as I go. So the next step here is to lay out all the batteries. So what we've got here is these laser printed numbers here. So L8082, that's my serial number for my battery pack, and then 12 is going to be the number in the pack. So I've got 14 in my pack, and this is going to be number 12. So let's see what we got here. We've got number 13. So lay that one right there. So yeah, they interlock. You can see that there. Interlock. Except must be upside down. There you go. Yeah, because you want positive to negative, right? 11 and 10. So we'll put those right there. Uh-oh. Did you make it out, little girl? Hi. You're just cruising right along.
But they'll never take our freedom!
Something I'm curious on is where my clips are for my sensors. So, here we go. So there's my sensor clip for my temperature. So that's actually on the bottom of the pack, which is where I'm going to need it. But obviously this could be popped off. I say that. Apparently that's easier said than done. But theoretically that could be popped off and put up top, so that you can put all the sensors up top instead. So anyway, so only one missing, that one that I'm charging and discharging to find out what the capacity, the measured capacity is on it. So here we go. So they actually they fit together fairly nice. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 of them. So 14 of these at 14.4 volts each, as opposed to 28 modules, which is twice as many, at 7.2 volts. So this will be exactly the same chemistry because these are nickel metal hydride, and it'll be the same voltage, but it'll actually be half the number of cells, which if you think about it, that's actually better because the more cells you have, the more chance there is of some of them being unbalanced from the rest. I mean, that's kind of what I'm figuring. All right, I didn't do this earlier, but I'm gonna go ahead and remove this bus bar. So I'm gonna pull the negative cable off of it, and this guy should fish out, and I can disconnect the plug that goes into the computer back here. I say that might be easier said than done. There is a zip tie of sorts on this. Alright, so this is the wire we're working on getting out. You can see right here, just a clip holding this in. A little rough on it there, but since I'm not reusing this piece, I suppose it doesn't matter too much. we're just a little bit cleaner now without this in the way. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the new one. So that's this guy here. Just in case it gets harder to reach in there later on. Switch this puppy back. You see how this one here just connected right here? This battery pack is right here at the very end. You can imagine if our terminals are down here at the bottom instead of up top, even that right there, just getting this guy down there. I might be able to, but that's what this is for. If that doesn't work, because that would run a little bit longer to get over there. So we'll see if we need it. All right, so first battery gets a temperature sensor. We're also going to pay attention to polarity. So remember when we took this battery apart initially, we determined that this right here was the positive connection. So I'm going to grab the positive end of this battery, and this is also number 1 here in our sequence. Number 1 goes closest to the ECU, so we're going to slide this in. So I'm going to clip my temperature sensor on right there. Slide this generally into place. Okay, so I didn't realize this at first. So this side over here, the terminals are along the bottom for each of the batteries. This side over here, the terminals are up top. I didn't realize that. But anyway, neither here nor there, just an observation. Alright, so here we are with another temperature sensor. The other ones, they were floating, right? You clipped them on and the sensor is just measuring the air temperature. With these, it actually pushes up against the cell of the battery. So it will measure hotter, relatively, to the engine computer, or to the, I suppose this computer's reading it and feeding it back to the engine computer. So the fan for this battery pack is going to run more often. So we're gonna have to pause now because I'm still messing with this other battery over here because I want to see how much charge it can take. But when that's done, we'll go ahead and continue assembling this battery pack. Here we are. It's the next day. I'm working on getting things hooked up, and this is not gonna fit. You can see that it's just a little bit too short. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap this wire out. So we're just gonna pull this off. I'm going to use my 5/16. And we will swap it out for our brand new one. That's on there nice and tight. Alright, so I'm done with my testing on this battery. I've got it charged back up. So we're going to go ahead and install the last one here. So we always want to go through and just check that everything is right. You don't want to start connecting bus bars and realize that something ain't connected right. So first of all, if the terminals are up top, it's a good indicator you've got them in the right order, and then you can see here the positive minus, positive minus, positive minus all the way across. So the other thing to check, when we first took the battery apart, this was the positive terminal here that was going to connect to this guy here. So we checked that, that's positive, which means this one over here is going to be our last, and that's going to be negative. No, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. This is our negative here. So positive all the way across and negative, and that'll give us our, what, 200 volt nominal or so. All right, so we've got that, and then, I mean, may as well double check, right? So they're laser printed on here, so you got the negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, all the way across, and that looks good. So I'm liking it. It all seems fine. Let's see. I'm curious how well. This guy, I'm probably gonna have to flip those upside down and get those connect, huh? That should be all right though. All right, so last battery here. Let me get my temperature probe clipped on, like so. All right, so we got the 3 temperature probes on. We've got our insulated torsion rods going on here. Okay, so the next step is going to be connecting the bus bars on these. So we're not going to connect the bus bar on the end here, because that's where our positive and negative terminals are going to connect. But we're going to get the sensor wires and bus bars connected on the rest. So we're going to do the odd numbered pieces of the wiring harness. These are for detecting the voltage of each of these 14.4 volt packs. So previously the ECU was set to measure them in blocks. So a block would have been 2 batteries, which would have been 14.4 volts, which I think is one of the reasons you're able to do this kit this way, because we've got half the number of batteries in here. But since the Prius only measured the voltage on them as blocks anyway, it doesn't really matter. So let's start with this. Let me grab some bolts and some bus bars, and we will get started. And then where's my V? So V1 is for the very end, which makes V3 this next one. I am not going to tighten these with the impact, I'm just going to screw them in. Okay, and it looks like we've got a handy place for this to travel along, right? One of the things mentioned to be careful of when tightening is that you don't allow these sensor wires to spin around. So make sure that you hold them still as you're tightening so they don't break themselves off. So I'm always going to put my sensor wires on the left. It doesn't really matter, I think, other than wire routing, whether it's on the left or the right, because it's on the same bus bar. So you can see as we're going here, so we're going to go negative, come over here, bus bar, come back over here, bus bar over, come back over here, bus bar over. So working on this end, it's going to be fine for voltage, right, for safety, because all I'm doing is connecting 2 14.4 volt batteries together. So that's like, what, 28.8 volts. Once I start doing the other side, that's where I'm going to start being really careful, because I'm going to start building up the voltage to the 200 volts. That's what I don't want to be touching something. We're going to do 48 inch-pounds. So let's get this up to 48, right about there, 48 inch-pounds. All right, so we're gonna use my torque wrench and get myself a 5/16 in here. I'm sure this is actually a metric size, but you know, for whatever reason I had a 5/16 available. Just gonna have to be careful when I'm tightening these that I'm not pulling the batteries out of place. There we go. I got this torque wrench. This actually seems pretty nice from Amazon. I'll throw that link down below if you're gonna do this and you need a torque wrench, especially one that's in inch-pounds. So this is a little 1/4 inch socket torque wrench made for smaller stuff. So it'll do, what will this do? It'll do up to 200 inch-pounds. So a very much more precise tool than you would normally use for car mechanics. So let's just run over here to the other side and we'll start again. So this is where I'm gonna have to be much more careful. I do not want things to go sparky. So notice that they've got barriers here between the batteries. I like this kit because it makes it fairly foolproof. You still want to pay very much attention to what you're doing. You want to understand what you're doing. But the fact that you can't put a bus bar between these two is amazing, because I've already got a bus bar between these two on the other side. So that just makes it very much safer. Anything they can do to make me safer. You will need to pull these sensor wires, the even numbered sensor wires, over to this side. The original battery pack only had sensor wires on the one side, but since we've got 14 batteries instead of 28, we will need sensor wires on each side. They show the sensor wires on the right end, so I'll throw the sensor wires on that end as I go. And you know what I've done wrong already? Is I connected a bus bar where the disconnect's supposed to be. Disconnects on the second set of batteries. So I'm gonna pull off this bus bar here. This one does not belong. Certainly not a catastrophic mistake. Wouldn't have shorted anything out, it just doesn't give me the ability to use a disconnect. And you want to disconnect, absolutely. Time for some torque wrench action here. Alright, so the next step here is going to be to tighten the torsion rods up, but not tight, just a little bit there so that it's not moving around, because we've still got to put the bolts in from the underside for all these connections. But before we do that, I wanted to show what the max voltage on this pack would be right now, so that y'all would have an idea of what the danger is when you're messing with this. So max would be from this negative terminal here over to, say, this terminal here. Notice that my multimeter is beeping because this is dangerous voltage. So we got 138 volts DC here. So certainly not something to play around with. So we should be able to drop this theoretically straight down. And it's got to pop over these little guides here. Got that one. This battery's not near as tight in the case as the original Prius batteries, thankfully. It might have been too much. I can always back those off a tad if I need to. Now, they didn't mention it, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the nuts right here on the ends. If I've got them in here, that'll keep things from falling apart. I don't think I actually have the nut for the other side. I'll have to go looking for that later. So here's our negative. We're gonna go ahead and connect this along with its sensor wire. Remember, this is 138 volts in places. Give this a little torque. My sensor wire started spinning around, so I went ahead and moved it back. Alright. Nope, I don't like that. Sensor wire is too far over. Alright. Before I move forward, that this guy fits. So this is supposed to pop over it. See, it's got a small indent here and a large one here, so I like it. Alright, so let's go over to the positive terminal. Get myself a bolt. Gonna run through our sensor ring into our positive cable. Alright, give this guy some 48 foot-pound torque action. There we go. Alright, so positive and negative leads are connected. I'll just pull that into the ECU compartment. Actually, tightens up nicely there. I like that. I like things to look tidy. All right, so this is the part where we then go up under and we start bolting the batteries in. Now that we've got all the bolts in from the underside, we're going to tighten things up to 44 inch-pounds. All right, there we have it. All the batteries are bolted into the chassis at 44 inch-pounds. All right, so now I'm just going to snug up these torsion bolts. And obviously that's not to actually hold the pack together. It's more of a, they were there anyway. Those were used previously to keep the prismatic cells together so they don't expand when they charge or discharge. But with the cylindrical cells, that is not a problem. Next step is going to be these disconnect cables. So you'll notice that they're upside down. So I'm going to need to get these right side up. And they're also too long. So this is going to be a bit of playing around with it and seeing what's going to work here. So this one I could do upside down. No problem, right? That'll make good contact. This one, on the other hand, if I tried to do it upside down, it would contact the battery case. So I can't do that. Okay, so I looked up how he did it, and the picture doesn't make any sense. What I'm thinking is, I'm just gonna bend this tab over so that this piece here doesn't get in the way of the battery casing. If I can put it in like so. Yeah, I think that'll do the trick right there. All right, so we've got some, so I'm gonna go for the duals here. Some that are taller than others. So I'm gonna guess that the taller ones are for, say, over here, where I've got more wires I'm having to deal with. So let's see if this fits here. Ah, that worked pretty nicely. All right, let's see if I can find another tall one. It's squished out a little bit, but it fit. So I put all of these sensor wires on so they were vertical, but now that I'm putting these covers on, I could actually have angled them up a little bit and they wouldn't be trying to poke up above my covers. So take that from me and do with it as you wish, but I think if I was doing it again, that's what I would do. So I don't have a bunch of the long ones, so I'm guessing that this negative wire here is just going to be exposed. Well, I say exposed, I mean it's sitting in its own insulation and conduit. I'm just not going to be putting it behind these plastic covers. There you have it, people. This is my 2007 Prius battery pack with brand new cells. These were, as of 2019 when I bought these, it was $1,600 shipped to my door. They arrived in, what, 4 days? I think I ordered them on a Saturday, got them on a Wednesday. That's quite impressive. The kit came with all the needed stuff to retrofit. Everything seemed to fit together nicely. There weren't any big questions. He had plenty of documentation on actually getting the battery out of the car, how to retrofit the new cells, and then how to get it back into the car. This all went really well. So let me know down below if you end up buying one of these batteries and then what your experience is, because I'm very curious. I know that there are a few places you can buy replacement Prius batteries, but this seems like a fairly reasonable price option, especially for a car that's reaching 10, 12, 14 years old, and you don't really want to go spend $3,500 for a battery from Toyota. $1,600 seems like a fairly reasonable price that a lot of people could deal with, assuming you're okay with taking it out, or maybe you can find a local hybrid shop that'll do it for a couple $100. So let me know.